Welcome into the In the Money podcast for KeenelandSelect.com. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I'm Tom Leach, along with Keeneland's Director of Wagering Development, Jim Goodman, as we talk about the Friday late pick 4 at Churchill Downs. It's their closing weekend, and Friday always features the Grade 1 Clark Handicap, but they've also added the Grade 2 Mrs. Revere in the last year or two. So we'll look at those two stakes, the late pick 4 on the Friday card. Let's start in the 10th with the Grade 2 Mrs. Revere for fillies and mares on the turf, Jim. And nice thing about this closing weekend at Churchill is usually get a lot of big fields, and we got double-digit fields in this one if it stays intact.
Yeah, I think this race is actually a better betting race than the Clark is. I know when we picked out the pick of the week, I had you all do the Clark, but this one's probably a better wagering race. So I think Princess Warrior, the 6, and Stella de Camelot, the 10 are going to be co-favorites here. I think Princess Warrior was very competitive in the QE2 at Keeneland, and I like to cut back to mile 16th, but she has no experience on the Churchill Downs turf, so that's a negative. But the other one, Stella de Camelot, has no experience at Churchill and only has one race in North America. However, that race was a very good race at Belmont in the Pebbles, a listed stakes race at a mile on soft turf, and she won easily there at Kensale. And Chad Brown gets Joelle Rosario to come and ride her in this race, so they are very serious about her getting a Grade 2 under her belt, and I think she's got a big shot in here. I think the only thing that they've got to worry about is a horse called Cool Beans for Brad Cox, who looks like she is the speed of the speed in here. And she started her career, she had a couple turf races. They tried her on the dirt. The last 3 on turf. She's almost went wire to wire, and almost went wire to wire at Valley View at Keeneland. So I think Cool Beans has a shot here just because of the flow of the race. But I'm going to stick with those 3 probably when we talk about the pick 4. If I had to pick one, I would take the Chad Brown filly, and that's surprising.
Yeah.
So Stella de Camelot is my pick here. But it's a good betting race. It's an extremely good betting race. Now, I think there's a lot of horses that could run second and third, so you can get some real value in the exotics here if you can pick out the winner.
I like Stella de Camelot a lot in here. I like that 93 buyer in the U.S. debut, and you mentioned the Rosario angle. I thought that's very significant that they're bringing him in to ride this one, and the pedigree suggests that the more distance the better for this one. So I think she's going to take a lot of beating in here. If you're looking for others, I thought Get Explicit, the 8, made a really nice run last time in the Valley View. Cool Beans ran well in that race too. Dark Artist, bad post from the 12 hole, but could have a shot. And Princess Warrior would be another one that I would take a look at in there. But I like Stella de Camelot a lot in the Mrs. Revere. In the Grade 1 Clark, there's one I like a good bit in there too. I'm not going to single, but I like Seeking the Soul. I like that 105 buyer in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. It's the best buyer ever for this horse, and he got good this time last year and won the Clark. And Johnny V rode him, and they're bringing Johnny V back in to ride him in this year's edition of the Clark. And he's won 3 times at Churchill. So I think Seeking the Soul's got a big shot in here. But Leo Frick and Prime Attraction, I have a lot of respect for those two out of the Fayette at Keeneland. So I'm going to put those on my pick 4 ticket as well. But I like Seeking the Soul to win the Clark. How about you?
Yeah, I like it too. I think this edition of the Clark is not nearly as tough as last year's. Opportunity was in there. Good Samaritan was in there. So he beat some really good horses, and they felt good enough about him to bring him back in the Pegasus where he ran up the track. But he's been steady this year. He had a bad race at Woodward, but other than that, he's had almost 100 to 105 buyers very consistently. So I think the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile sets him up perfectly for this. There's no way in the world he was going to beat City of Light that day. Nobody else was either. But getting a 105 buyer and only getting beat by 2 3/4 and beating everybody else in there, including Bravazzo, who's coming back in this race. I think Leo Frick could be tough to run down here on the lead. Another one with Giroux and Cox, and just maybe the speed of the speed here too. So he may be tough to run down. And Prime Attraction, I don't think Leo Frick is going to leave him alone on the front end, but he's drawn inside. And if Leo Frick starts to take back, Prime Attraction can take him a long way. So I'm going to play those horses underneath, but I am going to use Seeking the Soul. I'm probably going to single him in the Big 4.
Well, let's take a look at your pick four ticket then. Starts in the ninth race with a 1 mile allowance race for entry level allowance race, and then finishes up with a 7.5 furlong maiden race in the 12th. What's your pick four ticket look like?
Yeah, I like this race a lot better than last race. So I went 4 deep here with Ballard High, the 4 for Dallas Stewart, who happens to be the leading trainer at the Churchill Downs meet this time. I'm also going to use Ghost Story, the 6, only because this is a non-winners of 2 lifetime or non-winners of a race other than or for 3-year-olds. This horse has actually won 2 races. I always use those horses racing against horses that only won 1. I'm going to use Moe's Mojo, the 8 for Randy Morse. I'm going to use the 10, Big Jimmy, who would probably be my pick here if I had to do a win pick. But I'm going to use those 4, 6, 8, 10. I'm going to use the 3 that I talked about in the Mrs. Revere, Cool Beans, the 5, Princess Warrior, the 6, and Stella de Camelot, the 10. I am going to single Seeking the Soul in the Clark. I think he's a strong favorite there. And then as deep as you want to go in the last leg, there's only 9 horses in there. So if you went 9 deep, I think it's $54. I use 1, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. Using my rule that if I use 6 of them out of 9, I'll probably use all 3 of them. But no real strong opinion here. It's just it's a maiden special weight that seems to be wide open. Franking Jimmy raced at Keeneland, and Velasquez hangs around for the last race to ride that one. Victory Lane, the 5 for Neil Howard. I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other. So I'm going to use 6 there, but I could probably go all. But 1, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9 keeps it to $36.
I did not have very strong opinions at the beginning and the end of this, so because of that, I ended up wanting to find a single to keep the ticket manageable, and I actually went to the 10th and the Chad Brown horse, Stella de Camelot. If it's a situation where if I don't single that one, then I'd have to go pretty deep, and I would bust the budget to do that. So I'm going to single that horse in the second leg, the 10. I'm going 6 deep in the first leg. 1 or 2 of these might scratch, but Rare Form, the 5, I thought was really impressive off a long layoff with an 84 buyer, and looked like it was maybe highly regarded last winter down in Florida for Romans. So I think that one's could be salty in here, but I like Ballard High, I like Courage and Honor, the 3, Moe's Mojo, the 8, Emerald, the 9, and Big Jimmy, the 10. So 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10. Then take the 10 in the Mrs. Revere. I'm using 3 in the Clark. I'm going to use 1, 3, and 5, Prime Attraction and Leah Frick, in case Seeking the Soul gets beat. And then I'm going to use 4 in the last leg, 4 of the ones that you mentioned, 1, 7, 8, and 9. If I had to pick, I might take the Wilkes horse, Presidential Tweet, making the second start. That's off an improvement for Ian Wilkes. The 9 was gelded after a subpar race last month and is trained well, so that might have woken that horse up. So 1, 7, 8, 9 in the last leg. So 6 by 1 by 3 by 4 for me in the late pick 4 on the Black Friday card at Churchill Downs. Now, on Saturday, it's their 2-year-old day to wrap up the meet, and you got the 2-year-old filly stake, the Goldenrod, and the 2-year-old boy stake, the Jockey Club, both grade 2. And, I thought Restless Rider was a real strong favorite in the Goldenrod. I thought the Jockey Club was a little more intriguing. I thought Signal Man for Kenny McPeak I thought was intriguing. I thought Current, who ran well at Keeneland and then had a bad start in the Breeders' Cup, switching to Dirt for Pletcher. I thought that one could be interesting. Mix goes in there. You had a real impressive maiden winner, Blue Steel for Romans. So I thought I liked a little deeper there. I thought Restless Rider looked awfully strong in the Goldenrod. Any thoughts on Saturday?
I think Restless Rider looks strong. The only filly I thought that might give her a run for the money is the Chad Brown filly, Break Curfew. Very impressive on her debut in New York for Chad. But only 1 race under her belt. Restless Rider, runner-up in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. So she's no match for Jaywalk, but I think she ought to take these. In the Jockey Club, I think Nick's go, but you're not going to get 40-1 or 70-1 on him the last 2 races. He's going to be more like 3-1 in this one. He's proven that it wasn't a fluke at Keeneland. But I'm like you, Current. I've got a word written here that you use, intriguing. Current is intriguing on turf to dirt angle, 24% pressure. Got a horrible start in the juvenile turf, and I just think he didn't get anything out of that race at all. They're going to get another race in him, and they thought this was good opportunity to try him on dirt. So I would play him in here. Dumps has an affinity with the Churchill Downs strip, won a 7 furlong stakes, and hadn't been challenged in 2 starts. So I think the Jockey Club is kind of wide open here, but Restless Rider is probably a good single. The late pick 4 in the Goldenrod.
Best of luck with your weekend wagers on the holiday card to wrap up the Churchill Downs meet. We'll be back next week for another edition of the In the Money podcast for KeenelandSelect.com.